Welcome to Work from the Inside Out, a podcast that highlights real-life stories, practical strategies, and best practices for transitioning your career from unhappiness and dissatisfaction to fulfillment, meaning, and joy. Now here is your host, career and executive coach, Tammy Guler-Loeb.
Hey, everybody. I am so delighted to introduce you to my guest this week, Natalie Siston. Natalie believes everything she needed to know to succeed in her career she learned by growing up in a town of 600 people. As a certified professional coach, avid writer, and award-winning public speaker, she helps her clients and audiences make wherever they are feel like a small town. She lives in Dublin, Ohio with her husband, Rob, a professor at Ohio State, and 2 little girls. Welcome, Natalie, and thank you for speaking with me from your home office in Dublin, Ohio.
Well, you're very welcome. I'm very excited for our conversation today.
Yeah, I am too. So one thing I want to make sure I share with my audience is that you work a full-time day job for a Fortune 100 financial services company, and I would love for you to share with us a little bit about what you do. And then also, there's a few other things that you're doing that you have blended in professionally in addition to your full-time job. And of course, I think of parenthood as a full-time job as well. So how do you do it all and not be completely exhausted?
Well, I'm glad we started there because I do believe that is the number one question I get asked. And I don't care if it's someone that I work my day job with, people who, the other moms from the classroom, that type of thing. I'm always getting the question, how do you do it all? So let me just back up a second so I can paint a broader picture for the audience of what this life looks like, kind of the building blocks to a day in the life of Natalie Siston. So I have been running my company, Small Town Leadership, for almost 3 years. March, I will celebrate 3 years of hitting launch. So it's very exciting. I know I said my little baby's now becoming a toddler. It's very exciting. And at that entire time, I've had a job at Nationwide. And I'm just so excited that I can have a conversation with you today about how I blend this world together and how it all came to be as well. Because I think that'll resonate with your audience in terms of really this thinking and searching from the inside out about what's going on. Yeah. And yes, I have my 2 little munchkins who are 6 and 9 years old, and a husband who has a very, very busy job as well. So it's a full life, but over the past few years, Tammy, what I've done is I've really done hard work on myself. So I got my coaching certification. That started in 2016. My gosh, I'm losing track of time here. So started that process in 2016. So over the past 3 years, as a coach, you know this, you go through this really deliberate process of learning what it's like to be a coach. But fundamentally, I believe that we all are trying to solve our own issues first.
Yeah, right? Well, that's part of the training too, is that you have to bring your whole self to the process in order to you have to understand yourself in order to be able to help others, I think, right?
Exactly. And I think the first year of my coach training and being in that environment, I wasn't fully there. I was still kind of going through the motions. I was asking the right questions. I was doing the right things. But really, about a year and a half ago is when I had my big wake up call of, what am I doing? Why am I doing all this stuff? Because at that point, I was a year and a half into running a business. And I think to anybody who's listening, who started a business or is thinking about it, patience is key.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing happens overnight. And so a year and a half in, I'm thinking, isn't this supposed to be going a little faster? Are more things supposed to be happening? And I really started to assess, do I keep doing that? Do I hang up the day job? I felt like I had to choose a path. And then a year ago, Tammy, and almost exactly a year ago to when this is airing, I sat down and had a conversation with my now boss and really just opened myself up to what was going on in my life and this conversation about this pool and knowing that I had these paths. And at the time, he was planning to open a job that probably would have been a really great fit for me. And so I walked away from that conversation going, wow, I didn't even know this other path existed. Like, until that moment, I had no idea the function that I'm in today existed. And it's pretty incredible that just opening myself, being there fully allowed me to walk into this new place I'm in.
So tell us a little bit about the new place you're in at Nationwide, and then also a little bit more about what your business is about. And I do have this habit of asking 5 questions at once because I try to get it all out of my head. The other thing I want to point to, though, is it sounds like there was kind of a pivot point for you about a year and a half ago, where it sounds like you hit a little bit of a wall where you said, hey, wait a minute, the business isn't quite going the way I thought it would. It's not good or bad. It just isn't where I thought it would be. So that speaks to the whole conversation about how we create expectations. And when they don't get fulfilled, we tend to turn on ourselves a little bit, or we get critical instead of just sort of staying open and curious about it. And so you were at this point about a year and a half ago. You had started your business. I want to hear more about that. I mean, I know it's a coaching business, but I'd like to hear you say a little more about that. And then what even compelled you to be that open with your boss? A lot of people are afraid to be open with their bosses.
Oh gosh, yeah, you're right there. So let's back up a few steps. So what I do with small town leadership is that I originally started it 3 years ago strictly as a place for blogging and speaking.
Oh, okay.
When I worked with a coach back in 2015, because I was feeling a career plateau, we talked a lot about the things I did when I was younger that I loved doing that I wasn't doing at that time. And those were speaking and writing.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was thinking about everything I spoke and wrote about as an adult, it all tended to come back to lessons I learned growing up in Republic, Ohio, population 600.
Wow.
Because I would do presentations on networking, and I would get up at the front of the room and say, the slide would say, Natalie Siston, expert networker. And my first opening was I would put a big X through those words and say, no, I'm not an expert networker. I'm a passionate connector.
Ooh.
And I would explain to them what it felt like to grow up in an environment where you truly did know everybody, whether you wanted to or not. You knew everybody.
Yeah.
And I was able to step into a world where that was a really good thing. And so I've carried that with me everywhere I've gone. So when I was thinking about all the stuff that was going on, I was like, oh, I think this is called small town leadership. This is because my leadership style is this small town style. It's get to know people around you, understand how all the pieces work together so that if I need expert A, I know to go here. If I need expert B, I go there. And so later that year is when I actually started adding the coaching element, because working with a coach was so profound for me and it led me down that path. And after getting asked by about 5 different people at that point in time, have you considered becoming a coach? I said, oh, no, but now that you're the 5th person to tell me that, maybe I should take this a little more seriously. So that's when I began pursuing my own coaching designation. And then I pivoted to be offering coaching services through small town leadership.
And so how was the juxtaposition between developing all of that, even having the bandwidth to be thinking about all that strategically while raising 2 young children and having a full-time corporate job? Were there things at I'm curious, did some of the people at your corporate job, were those some of the people who said to you, have you ever thought about coaching?
Yes, almost everybody was at my corporate job.
So there was some tie-in with how you were operating it at work and how that was reflecting back to thinking about where you wanted your business to go then.
Exactly. Yeah, I definitely had a lot of support. I've had a lot of support the entire way. And now I just feel like I'm in a perfect alignment because I did switch jobs a while ago to be the director of coaching, which is such a natural fit. I love leading people. I've been a natural leader since I grew up in that little town. It was just my thing to go take charge, take lead. And I experienced extreme I don't know what's the word, but just I love showing up, leading people, being that great person that they can come to bounce ideas off of, but also to form a vision and strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that piece has been a big part of my life for the last 8 years as a people leader at this company. And now I'm going to answer the question that you asked when we started and you got to hear again, which is like, how did I do all this while working this full-time job? And oh, by the way, the job I had when I originally started this required a lot of travel.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, I was on the road quite a bit and lots of nights, weekends, that kind of thing. So for all your listeners who want the magic sauce, they need to pause, get their pencil out and write down, because I'm going to give them the magic formula, Tammy.
All right.
Okay.
I'm braced. I'm ready.
Okay. The magic is 25 minutes.
Are we talking Pomodoro?
Well, kind of, but I don't have time to work in true Pomodoro, because you're supposed to do 4 25-minute blocks in a row and then take a longer break. I usually just have 25 minutes.
Okay.
So for me, when I was starting this 3 years ago, and because my kids are 6 and 9, time goes fast and they were much different phases.
Right.
I would, as they were watching their nightly cartoon, which usually lasted about 22, 23 minutes, I would be in my office figuring out how to build a website, figuring out how to get blog content up, figuring out how to put it all on social media the right way. And so I did that. I had like 3 different blocks of time during the day when I would do this. It would be early in the morning. I am definitely a morning person, so that's always worked well for me. This little 7:30 to 8 p.m. slot while they were watching a TV show, and then after they went to bed. Now, I didn't do all 3 blocks every day.
Right.
Some weekends I would take myself away to a coffee shop and put in a solid 2-hour block, that type of thing. But my dream, and I think I put this on an Instagram post a couple weeks ago, is to take myself to a wooded retreat for 3 days, and just me and coffee and wine and chocolate and carbohydrates. It sounds wonderful. All the bad things. And just write, because I am planning to write a book this year. But I know the reality of my life is that's probably just not in the cards in the near term future. So yeah. I have learned to operationalize these 25-minute blocks of time. It's also, this is one of the cool side benefits. I have learned to use so many great tools as an entrepreneur that, oh my gosh, it makes life so much easier for scheduling and for emailing, for building the website, for collaborating with other people, because I have done a couple group things during this time as well. So I love experimenting with those tools, because then I try to figure out, okay, how can we use this in the corporate setting, or how can we at least use the idea of this tool in the corporate setting?
So, in my mind, as I'm listening to you talk about all this, I'm still sort of begging, the question is begging at me. So now we know how you make it happen.
Yes.
How do you manage your energy? How do you keep the energy going? And I want to hear your answer to that. And there's an observation along with this, and that is that there are some significant parallels between what you're doing at work and what you're doing in your business. Although there's a difference in that one's for the company and one's more for something that you really call your baby, so to speak. I don't know if you think of, I'm sure Nationwide has more than 600 people, so we know it's not a small town in the same way. But there may be something about the culture of your company, or at least the groups that you work with, where it does enable you to feel like there is that sort of small town level of knowing and support, things like that. But still, I'm just imagining someone listening to this and saying, I don't know how she manages her energy. Does she ever take a shower? Does she,
Yes. Contrary to what anybody might be thinking, I have, my hygiene is great, and I make time to work out every day. My family eats warm meals. There's nothing's falling by the wayside. And I think it's because I've found this one diagram. I hope I can describe it.
Okay.
And you probably have seen it perhaps in some of your coaching, but for those listening, just picture this diagram. It's a 4-circle Venn diagram.
Okay.
And it's all around how you get to your purpose. So the 4 things in the circles are what you love doing, what the world needs, what you can be paid for, and what you are good at. So what you love doing, what the world needs, what you can be paid for, what you're good at. And those help you identify passion, mission, vocation, profession. And ultimately, at the middle of that is your purpose. And, do we ever all fully get to our purpose? I don't know. I'm not a judge of that. But I know, to your point, I'm more aligned with all of that stuff than I've ever been in my professional career.
Yeah.
And so that in and of itself, I get energy every day. I've been in roles before where Friday rolls around and 1 p.m. I'm looking at my watch going, can we go home for the weekend now?
Yeah.
Or how can I figure out a way to not come into the office today because I'd rather just, be in my PJs and check email.
Yeah.
But in the role I'm in now, I have to peel myself away from my desk every day. And thank goodness I have these 2 little people who are expecting me to pick them up from Latchkey.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'd probably be staying a lot more hours because I fully enjoy what I'm doing.
Yes.
And I can be that full person. And you're absolutely right. My company is so supportive of growth and development, and get out there, train yourself up, get yourself to the right class that you need to go to, find the right kind of support that you need. And oh, by the way, have a mentor or a leader who is fully behind you the entire way as well. So I think I've been very fortunate that my current boss and my last boss have just been extraordinarily supportive of this path I'm on. I think you get really close to people you report to, I think it's easy to say that they see a little peek behind the curtain. They know what you're capable of.
Yeah.
They see the work output that you do, but they also see the heart come through as well.
Well, and I can only imagine that you're also the kind of communicator who is able to let your boss peek behind that curtain and see what you're up to, and to know, to have a sense of your character and your approach to work. I think it's a both and kind of thing. And I think a lot of the people that I certainly work with who I coach, they don't feel supported in that way. And that's why they find me. They might find you as well. I think it's a saying or something out there about how people often don't leave a job, they leave a boss. And it sounds like you've had some outstanding leaders and supervisors there. And I think that is a key to being somewhat happy in a job, at least for a period of time.
It absolutely is. And I'll say 2 things about that, Tammy. So one, the beauty of my job now is that I help our leaders become coaches. So to gain the fundamental coaching skills that it takes, not to just to manage or direct, but instead to coach. So I am so fundamentally behind that purpose, and I'm so aligned with that mission that it just makes sense. I mean, coaching fundamentally has changed my life. Yeah. So the fact that I get to show up every day and help that become a reality to more people, it's nirvana. It's fantastic. And everybody takes that journey differently.
Yes.
So seeing different leaders go through that journey is very powerful. And, the team of 7 coaches I lead get to see that very closely every day. So it's very exciting. I think the thing I would point out to the people who are listening, who might not have hired you yet, Tammy, but who need to now, I think my big wake up calls also earlier in my career, so this is before this whole journey started, was that I had 2 fundamental beliefs about work. And one was that I thought it was other people's job, namely my bosses, to make sure that I was happy.
Oh, okay.
So that was belief number 1. And belief number 2 was that I wasn't sure that I could be my full self at work. So when you take those 2 things and combine, that is like disengagement on fire.
Right.
Right? That's definitely, that's toxic. That no one wants to be around that person.
Right. Right.
And I think when I finally, and I don't know how I came to realize that those were totally false, but let's just say fast forward to right now, now that I understand that those 2 things are entirely not true. And maybe it's because I'm a people leader and have been a people leader for almost 8 years, that I would never, ever want someone to not show up as their full self at work.
Right.
That it would actually break my heart if I learned that I had somebody who felt that they could not come and be themselves.
Yeah.
But the whole making other people happy, that's an interesting one because
very interesting. Yeah.
I have a very high capacity. That's also how I'm able to get a lot of this stuff done. So it's always meant that I love to be busy at work. I love to have lots of stuff going on. Earlier in my career, I would just get bored. I'd be like, okay, I'm done. And just expect that cup to be filled up by other people. Yeah. And I think once I got to a point in my career, one, that there's always more to do.
Yes.
So maybe it's a factor of that, but also realizing I am actually responsible for what goes in that cup then. So there came a point when I think when I did start to wake up about 2 years ago in my last role, I was thinking, oh, I don't like doing this project, but this person on the team really does. Well, hey, let's present that as an opportunity to that other person. Or there were also some projects where I knew I would love. And then I put myself in front and said, hey, I'm taking this one. Whereas in the past, I probably do the very democratic, like, who wants to do the project? And then I was like, oh no, I want to do the project and I will do the project.
Yeah. Although I would imagine that even when you put yourself out there or put yourself front and center in that way, if somebody else said, oh, I'd love to work with you on that, you'd be open to that as well. It wasn't just that you were coming out there like a steamroller,
No, not at all.
Yeah. And I think the other thing you're pointing to here that is vitally important, no matter what direction somebody chooses to go in, there's got to be elements of knowing yourself in order to bring your full self to work. Now, I think we've been trained. I think we've been conditioned not to bring our full selves to work for the most part, that there's this separation between work and life. And so you're this work person and then you're this life person. And yes, there are ways in which we're going to behave at home when we're in our pajamas that we're not going to behave at work that way because it's just not the place to be that way. But I still think you can be an authentic part of yourself or a big part of yourself at work. But I think there's an ownership piece. So there's a self-awareness piece, knowing yourself, being able to really capitalize on that, and taking ownership of who you are and how that person, who you are, interacts in the workspace with clients, with various constituencies, whether you're managing upwards or managing people who report to you or peers. All of those relationships, you really have to own who you are and what decisions you're making. It doesn't preclude you, though, from seeing things through another lens or collaborating or any of those things. But I think that I don't think there are a ton of company or organizational cultures out there that really inspire that level of ownership.
And I think that's where it starts from the bottom up, Tammy. If you have people listening to this podcast who are feeling like that, don't wait for your manager, their manager, or the CEO of the company to make this big mandate of today you can start showing up as your full self.
Right.
I think that has to start individually with each person. I think the more all the masses start to show up and realize like, oh, I can truly be myself and truly say the things that might feel controversial, that might feel like it's not the go along to get along.
Yes.
Because honestly, we're living in a world where if we don't have those kind of innovative thoughts, if we don't hear some of the pushback on the way things have always been done,
right,
traditional businesses, won't survive how we want them to. And we have an opportunity to thrive, but it's going to take everyone to show up as they are to do that. And to really have that tough look at themselves if they are looking at those 4 circles in that Venn diagram, realizing like, oh gosh, there's no way I can even get close to any of these while I'm doing what I'm doing. Okay, then that's a huge wake up call too. And hopefully like when your phone starts to ring for people to inquire for your services, right?
Thank you, Natalie. You're hired.
This is not a paid endorsement. Yes, I'm not an affiliate.
Not a paid endorsement. But I wanna ask you a what if question because I've got this little cynical voice in the back of my head saying, so you've been really lucky, Natalie. You have this clearly warm and engaging personality, a roll up your sleeves kind of energy, get things done, engage people in positive ways. You work in a company that seems to embrace that beautifully and supports their employees in their growth. This sounds very idealistic in so many ways. And so, when I think about what you said about bottom up, you've got to start with yourself. My first thought was, and you may have to do it in some very small steps. You just need to keep showing up and offering things in the environment. It may not be always well received right away. And I think there are some companies that would probably not support somebody as yourself really taking some ownership or bringing their full selves to work or trying to bring new ideas or new ways of doing things into the fold. And so, what if you were doing all these things and it wasn't being well received? What would you have done?
That's a good point, because you might have people who are feeling that way right now. Like, oh, I have to hide what I'm doing. And let me tell you, Tammy, it doesn't mean that when I started working small town leadership and my job at the same time, I had huge fears.
Yeah.
I had huge fears of, even though I made all the right calls and checked all the right boxes that you have to do, I certainly had fears about, will people question my commitment here? I think that was the number one fear I had for myself. So if I had that fear combined with, it's not accepted, I don't know. I think that I probably either would have shut down the side business in that year and a half mark.
Yeah.
I just would have shut it down, or I would have felt, if I felt the pull so much toward small town leadership in that way, that I would have felt like I would have had to quit the job.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I do. I feel fortunate every day. I have
and I'm not
every day. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not saying, you are so lucky, Natalie. You are lucky. You are lucky. You're very fortunate. And you've also made something of that good fortune. And I know, and probably people who work in companies and work in organizations that aren't all that supportive and don't really care as much about the well-being or the growth and the development of their employees. I think it's a huge mistake. But that said, we know it happens out there. So, I want the listeners, those of who may be feeling more stuck or less supported, to have some ideas, maybe take some pages out of your book, the one that's not written yet, and be able to then, kind of either make some lemonade out of the lemon that they're in, or find their way to a better place. And I'm curious to know, so I think many of us, when we're going through changes, are riddled with some sort of fears or apprehensions, and some of us will sort of move through those to get to a place we want to be. Part of that's due to the fact that some of us have more clarity about where we want to be. We also see a lot of people who they know more about what they don't want than what they do want, right? So I think one of the things that's helped you move through this is, of course, your supportive, community and environment. And also that you had a vision of where you wanted this to go, even if the vision didn't realize itself completely, and it's evolved over time. And I'm wondering if there's anything you could share with our listeners from your own experience, from your own philosophy, about how they can maybe rise up from a place where they're feeling maybe somewhat stuck or a little bored or a little unfulfilled, to start to make some movement towards a more satisfying, meaningful way to go about work.
Great question. I think it ties into two of the things that I've had to do and have made me be successful on this path. So first and foremost is getting clear with yourself, like your point. So the exercise that I would give to anybody, and most of the coaching clients I've ever worked with have had to do this assignment, it's the visioning work of, where do I want to be in 5 years?
Yeah.
I had to do this assignment when I started my coaching program. So I submitted this in early 2017 to my coach at the time. And honest to God, Tammy, one full paragraph out of that vision statement that I created for myself, I cut and pasted into my last cover letter. I mean, it was a pretty bold move, because this wasn't edited. I literally put, this was taken from my 5-year vision statement that I wrote last year. And I put it in there because that was me showing up as my full self.
Yes.
But that exercise of doing a vision statement.
Yes.
And I tell people, it doesn't need to be specific that I want to be in this job, earning this much money, living in this place. in being in these kind of relationships. It doesn't need to be specific. I said, think about the type of feelings you want to have in those
Right.
5 years.
Right.
Because then it puts it in your subconscious of your brain. All the
Yep.
neuroscience research going on now shows you that
Yeah.
you'll start to actually try to make those things happen.
Yeah,
So-
that's a very
so
good point. Yeah.
So I love that exercise. Write the 5-year vision. And then if you want to get really granular, you start to break that down into, okay, then what does 3 years look like? What does a year look like? What does 6 months? What does 3 months? And okay, what do I need to do today then to start to get there?
Yeah.
So that helps me a ton. It helps me break my goals down. It helps me establish the things so that I can use these 25 minutes of time very, very wisely.
I'm glad you tied that back into your 25 minutes. And I think that, that there is something magical about that 25 minutes. And even if you can only fit in one, I would think that people could get more done in 25 minutes than if they set aside a whole hour.
Definitely. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's something else here. I was just thinking, and I don't mean to sound negative, but I'm thinking, so there probably are people listening who would say, well, I don't know what I want in 5 years. And I think the way you just described it about what might it feel like in 5 years, or another way that I've put it to people is, what would you like your impact to look like?
That's great.
How most people will say that they'd like to make a difference. And that doesn't necessarily have to be something super altruistic, like world peace or, solving the problems of poverty in the world. But there are lots of different ways that I think people find themselves feeling good about themselves. And if they can reflect on that, even of past experiences where you feel like you made a difference or you had an impact in a positive way, reflecting on that and then saying, well, what might that look like going forward? And what can I do in the next 6 months or year to try to even further define that or clarify that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's things that I think people can do to get the answers to those questions they're saying, I don't know to.
I agree. And that goes directly to my second tip here, which is use other people to help you figure out the path.
Yeah.
And that's probably been the other biggest success for me is talking to people. So instead of standing around the water cooler complaining for 15 minutes about how terrible and awful and whatever things are, okay, use those 15 minutes to go meet with someone who you admire in your organization or outside your organization or that you follow on LinkedIn. Those types of small connections have added up for such major impact in my life that it is a regular practice for me.
Yeah.
This past week, I had 3 calls with people that I'd never met before.
Wow.
We've been, social media friends. We've been exchanging emails perhaps or commenting on stuff, but we legitimately sat down, in most cases had a video chat with one another. And it goes to my thing with small town leadership. It makes our big world feel like a smaller place. Because when I can take your thumbs up or your little heart that you put on social media and I can actually put a person with that.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
All of a sudden that thumbs up and heart means something very different the next time they come through on a post.
Absolutely. And, I think the other thing that can help with that kind of, I don't know thought or standing around the water cooler, complaining about where the glass is half empty is to just take an interest in other people. Find out what lights them up, because you'll find that when you learn about what lights other people up, you're going to start thinking about what lights you up, and it's going to take you to a better place.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah. And that's how you really get to know people too.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, if the people you're sitting next to and working with, if you know them at that fundamental level of, I know when they leave work today, they are going to volunteer at this place, or they're going to go help at their kids' school, or they're going to go home and play the video game for an hour to decompress. Just knowing those things about people brings you closer, and it makes it so much easier to ask for help, invite help, collaborate.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was just thinking about a session I facilitated with a group of teachers where I didn't know any of them, but they all knew each other. And yet I wanted to do some kind of introductory warm up because I needed to know who they were, but I didn't want to bore them with going through who everyone was in the room. And that was it. So I added a question. I said, please tell me, who you are and what your role is here at the school. And then tell us one thing about yourself that you think no one else here knows about you. And it was just really interesting to hear all the different things people talked about and how they did. They lit up. They got to know something about each other. I think it's amazing how something fairly small can really shift the energy and how you're feeling about things. And I think, that's something that I think you and I both share in terms of really wanting to bring that to people. Another thing that I know you're bringing to people is your 52 weeks of meaningful connections. And I would love for you to tell us more about what that's about for you.
That's a great segue. And it is my project right now that I'm so passionate about, and we're almost at the close. So I launched 52 Weeks of Meaningful Connections in 2016, and 52 weeks has morphed into being a little more than that, but that's fine because it's my business and I can do what I want to do.
That's right.
every week I've brought an article to my blog readers about connection. Sometimes it's been a tip. Sometimes it's been an article about research about connection. And sometimes, actually a lot of times, it's been a challenge. This week, go make friends with a stranger. This week, ask a question at the beginning of your business meeting like you just did and when you described it, so people can get to know one another at a deeper level. For 40 some weeks I've been at this, and I will be wrapping in March of this year. And I will be bringing the series to a conclusion with what I hope to be a really powerful message about my own journey in connection and why I even did it in the first place, which I didn't even know why I was doing it in the first place until I got about halfway through.
Really?
Yeah, I did it.
Something kept you going with it.
Yeah, because I had a very tactical reason. I wanted to be putting something out weekly. I wanted to hold myself accountable to a goal. And then halfway through, once again, maybe it's something about this halfway point.
Yeah.
I questioned, I said, do I want to keep writing this?
Yeah.
And that's when I stepped back and I had a big aha moment about why I did. And I'm not going to spoiler alert here because I do want people to check it out. The finale will be a video. I, as part of this, so I was figuring out my own way about how to get the word out and how to spread the message. So every week I posted the article on all my social channels, but then I also shot a video. And we're talking 2-3 minute video that I did with my iPhone in my home office.
Yeah.
And posted on all the places. And those videos have been the biggest success for me in the past year. They've been a lot of fun to do. And two, I start more conversations because of those videos than on almost anything else I've created in 3 years.
Wow.
So that's why I'm very excited to bring the series to a close with a professionally done video. I hired a videographer and we went and did work together. And honestly, Tammy, I will be very nervous the day it goes out because it's very personal. It's highly personal. For me, it's probably something, if I watch it too many times, I'll need a box of tissues next to me. But I hope people can listen to it and watch it and find themselves in it somewhere.
Yeah.
And if they don't find themselves in it because they're not in that place, that if they can look at it and say, okay, I know someone else who might be facing this, and here's what I'm going to do to step in to make that meaningful connection with them.
Oh, I can't wait. I really can't wait now. You've got my appetite whetted. I assume, though, that your 52 weeks of meaningful connections will still be up on your blog or your website for people to take it all in and follow it as if they were doing it in real time.
Absolutely. There's always a way you can start your own 52 weeks now. So you just visit my website, click on that 52 weeks tab. And if you put in your email there, you'll start at week 1.
Oh, okay.
But I
great.
do promise if people go out right now and sign up, I am going to interrupt regularly scheduled programming to air the 52nd week. Because it'll be out there because it in some ways could be the beginning of the series too. So right. I do hope your listeners go out and sign up. Like I said, it's just one thing a week. Yeah. One thing a week. And you and I both know as coaches that sustainable change happens bite by bite.
That's right.
And that's what this has been all about.
Yeah. So how can they find you?
I'm very easy to find because I think I'm the only person with my name and my URL. So smalltownleadership.com is my newly updated website. It looks
Yay!
fabulous. Yay! And Natalie Siston on all the social channels. I'm very, very active on LinkedIn. So that would definitely be where I send people. But I've also put together a couple Instagram pages that are more my fun, creative thing where I can play with pretty pictures. So I would invite anyone to find me on Instagram or LinkedIn and definitely follow along on the website.
Great. And we will have all of that information in the show notes as well. So people will definitely be able to find you, no doubt about it. So, Natalie, this has been so much fun. I feel lit up talking to you. And I really appreciate your time today and talking with us about all that you're doing. And yet, I think there's a way in which you're telling us, look, you can do it all, but you have to kind of take it in bites and keep it in perspective and keep looking in the mirror and reflecting and then moving forward again.
I couldn't have said that better. You nailed it.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
I appreciate it so much. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Natalie Siston. It was such a pleasure to speak with her and learn about her life and professional journey, along with the way she has been able to make it all work in her life. What is your key takeaway from our conversation? Is there something you'll put into action this week that you'll benefit from for years to come? Share what resonated with you in the show notes at workfromtheinsideout.com. Look for episode 012. That's also where you'll find all the links and resources from today's podcast. If you enjoyed this episode with Natalie, please share it with your friends and colleagues, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss next week's show. Remember, subscribing is always free. Are you enjoying the podcast? I'd love to read your review on Apple Podcasts. It's easy to find my page at tammygoularloeb.com/Apple. Thanks so much for listening. And remember, it's never too late or too impossible to increase your sense of fulfillment and satisfaction in your work and other meaningful activities. Let me know how it's going for you. And who knows, maybe you'll be my next guest on this podcast. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to the Work from the Inside Out podcast. For more information, you can find us at www.workfromtheinsideout.com.